Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started again. And we've got Sherri Davidoff here from LMG Security. She came to us all the way from Montana, so give her a warm welcome. She's going to talk to us about cybercrime in 2018.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here today. You're like my favorite group to speak for. This is so fun. We've got wine, we've got a CTF. This is awesome. What security geek could ask for anything more, right? Okay, today we're going to talk about cybercrime, the top threats of 2018. And at LMG, we are lucky enough, frankly, we consult to support our research habit. We're lucky enough to have a forensics lab and a pen test group. And so I'll frequently talk with those groups and find out, what are you guys seeing in the wild? Like, show me some cool pictures, show me what you're seeing. And so that's what today's presentation is based on, conversations with our teams to find out what's up. Just a reminder, if you have a cell phone, please turn it to not so annoying mode. I also come armed every time with these Ninja Ducks. We're lucky enough to have a group of people with a lot of diverse backgrounds. And if you have any questions, feel free to just shout it out. You don't have to hold it to the end. If you have a story you want to share, we can learn from each other. I would love to hear it during the talk. So again, please feel free to jump in. You too could win a Ninja Duck. Also, I have feedback forms. Those of you who know me and see me speak know that I'm always looking to improve my presentations. I would love your feedback. So on the last page of these forms is a feedback form. If you can at least fill out the top half that says how I did, or if you have any suggestions, I would really appreciate it. And with that, let's begin. So you probably want to know, who is this person speaking to you? My name is Sherri Davidoff. I'm the CEO of LMG Security. I've been in cybersecurity for 17 years, since before it was called cybersecurity, back when it was still boring old information security. I do training for Black Hat for the Pacific Coast Banking School. I actually do training for our bank regulators at the FFIC and the FDIC headquarters in Washington, D.C. And I'm coming out with my second book soon on data breaches, so keep your eyes peeled. We have some data breach trivia going on tonight. My company, LMG Security, is based in Montana. And by the way, we would love to be a sponsor of your events and be involved in the community. And if you guys ever make it out to Montana, please drop me a line. We'd love to grab you for beers. We have a little Missoula InfoSec group, and it would be cool to have you guys as our guest. But we are a 30-person company. We're employee-owned, and we're based in Missoula, Montana. So with that, let's jump right in. This is an email that I got from one of our vendors. You've probably gotten similar emails. Please do not open. This was not sent from me. I'm not sure what happened. Anybody here gotten an email from somebody like this? Don't click on the link today. Don't click on that link. And you know, because you're security folks, right? You know when you look at this that it's more than just this email. That email is just the tip of the iceberg, right? You know that whoever sent that has a problem, and usually they just sort of go on with their day, but you're like, oh great, probably all my correspondence with them has been stolen. What's going on? So yeah, that email represents the tip of the iceberg, and it's often an early symptom of something that will become financial fraud, cyber extortion, sometimes weaponization, which we'll get to later, or it could by itself represent a data breach. So the first threat that we're going to talk about today is business email compromise. And I kind of held off making a talk on this for a while because I was like, who wants to talk about business email compromise? That sounds so boring. But it's become a total epidemic. Anybody know why? It works, yes. Good job. You're our first Ninja Duck. But why is it becoming worse? It seems like it's becoming worse. It's the easiest way to attack, and so many businesses are moving to cloud-based email now, right? 10 years ago, not everybody had webmail. Today, how many of you can check your email by the web? How many of you, out of curiosity, are using Office 365? Wow, that's a huge percentage of the room. Guess what percentage of our email breaches are Office 365? Like all of them. I'm going to raise my hand for all of the email breaches. They're like all Office 365. So that's what's being targeted today, Office 365 email. One of the early ways that we know that there's been an email breach is that money goes missing. So either a vendor says, hey, I didn't receive that payment that you sent, or you never received payment from a customer and they said, well, I paid you last week. I can't believe you didn't get that. So once we start drilling down into it, often we find that it's because things were confirmed over email. And as an example, a couple weeks ago, I was having lunch with a colleague of mine who is a fraud. He's with a large regional bank. He handles fraud. He's that first line of defense. He works with a lot of corporate customers. And he got a call from a corporate customer, and they said, hey, we sent a $900,000 wire transfer to a vendor, and it didn't arrive. So like, oh, that's bad news. So he's experienced, and so the first thing he asked them was, how did you confirm where the wire was going? And they said, oh, by email. And he pretty much hung up on them at that point and called the bank's fraud team and said, hey, trace that $900,000. And they traced it to another bank, and they said, it's probably gone, but we're going to try to find it. And then they called the other bank that it went to. The other bank froze the accounts, and it was a good thing that they did it, because it turned out that as they froze the accounts, a criminal was in the bank branch trying to withdraw that $900,000. And you can't withdraw $900,000 in 5 minutes, but you can withdraw it in like an hour, especially if you have all the supporting documentation. And if they had waited an hour, that money would have been just gone. It would have been out there, and there's really nothing you can do at that point to get it back. So that's the kind of thing that we are seeing every single day. Also, of course, financial transfers are not the only thing that happens over email. Here's a nice screenshot of sorry, I'm blocking my slides. Here's a nice screenshot of what Social Security numbers are worth on the black market. I really like this one because it shows you the bulk discounts. So if you get from 9 to 19 Social Security numbers, that costs you 98 cents. But if you get 100, that's only going to be 90 cents. Such a deal. Buy in bulk. And that means if you have one spreadsheet in your business email, that can easily be stolen and monetized. So that's just one example. What is in your email? What kinds of stuff? Most people will initially say, well, nothing important. I can't tell you how many executives I've talked to that say, I don't care if somebody breaks into my email. I don't have anything important. And usually they're CC'd on everything. What is in your email that's important? Password resets, that's a good one. That was easy. What else? Relationships with people. I'm going to be stingy on ducks, but that was a good one. What else? Who you bank with. Yep. If you're a financial institution, what's in your employees' email? They're not allowed to send customer information, right? But you can't stop customers from sending their loan documents over email and stuff like that. I mean, you can't. They do it. It's like they won't stop. They want to. If you're a healthcare organization, what's in your email? HIPAA data, PII, and maybe that's not supposed to happen, but it does. Even if your employees don't send it out, sometimes your patients send it in. And more often than not, the doctors themselves are like sending out emails to forward it to their personal emails so they can work from home or on the road. I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess. Your email is basically a file cabinet. So financial information, invoices, proprietary data, which we didn't touch on, personal information, you name it, all that is in your email. And for many people, it's just protected by one single lonely little password named after their puppy that they had when they were 5 years old. So let's talk about, by the way, how many of you use two-factor authentication on your webmail? Cool, you guys are awesome. This is why we're a security group. How many of you have employees at your company that do not use two-factor authentication on their webmail? You guys are still pretty good compared to the average, I think. That's awesome. But even if you, one of the reasons that people are breaking into our accounts, of course, is that our passwords are already stolen. And so we're really at the point where passwords are not enough. Here are some screenshots. Of course, we know that Yahoo had 3 billion accounts that were affected. This is a screenshot of 200 million Yahoo passwords that were being sold by a person named Peace of Mind on the dark underground. And at the time, it was going for 3 Bitcoins, which was about equivalent to $1,800. So you can see this was a little while ago. Also, here you can see hackers were selling 117 million LinkedIn passwords. How many of you have LinkedIn accounts? Sure, and a lot of people changed those and added like an exclamation point at the end. And so we know that there's automated tools out there that can make variations on your stolen passwords, and it's not hard to do. It's all automated, and it happens every single day. Also, I thought this was a really interesting case. Last year, we started to see a spike of DocuSign phishing emails. I don't know how many of you have heard of this, but yeah, okay, I see some people going, oh yeah. Anybody know why that was? Yeah, okay, so they all looked like this, and I was like, why is this happening? It turns out that DocuSign got hacked, And they came out and they announced that they were hacked. It was one of those hacks that really got kind of lost in the noise because they said really explicitly, a complete forensic analysis has confirmed that only email addresses were accessed. No names, physical addresses, passwords, social security numbers, credit card data, or other information was accessed. So who cares, right? Psh, email addresses, that's like nothing. Well, what it means is that the attackers, DocuSign is a service that basically trains people to click on links, right? Every day you're like, oh, review document, and the folks in finance or HR or management are getting those emails. They're trained to click on those links, and often they control the purse strings. They can log into online banking. Attackers now have this long list of all the warm targets out there that are expecting DocuSign emails, and so they're crafting fake phishing emails based on that. So they have a list of targets. So what we decided to do, because we saw all these business email compromise cases, we saw all these DocuSign phishing cases, we decided to set up a sting operation. It involves a hamster. It's great. Okay, so we created a professional services firm. We didn't file LLC paperwork. We made a fake professional services firm. It's called Hack and Able, so it's owned by Will Hack and Owen Able, so hackable.com. And Hack and Able gets their computers and IT from Jim Began Computer Services, and they get their furniture from Trusted Office Solutions, which has a billing clerk of Nora, and there's also a sales guy named Ryan. So we set up, and I want to give a shout out to Allie Sawyer on our team at LMG because she really did the legwork in setting this all up. And the terrible names are courtesy of her and Karen on our team. So Hack and Able has a new billing clerk called Susceptible. And we created an Office 365 account for her, and we seeded it with all kinds of juicy information. So you can see there's W-4s, there's W-9s, there's a business handbook, and there's also invoices in here. And we decided to see what would happen if we got hacked. So first we mocked up a phishing email, and we grabbed a real phishing link. It's actually real text. As some of you know, if you're trying to, phishing sites come down pretty quickly. So we went and we grabbed a fresh phishing link, and we embedded it in a real phishing email we had received, and we seeded the inbox with that. So we had completed hackable.com wire transfer document ready for signature. This was from a real case that we had handled. And we clicked on review document. And it went to this site. As you can see, if you squint, the domain doesn't look anything legitimate, except it has DocuSign in it, and that fools people. But it's branded as DocuSign, and you can select your email provider to sign, to review, and maybe sign your document. Office 365, Gmail. If you click other email, you can enter any email you want. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You can enter any username and password, and you'll be able to get to your document. So that's a red flag, a really good red flag for user training. You can tell them, if it says you can enter any password you want, it's probably not legitimate, right? It's probably a little too good to be true. So this is what it looked like. And when you click on Office 365, it looks like the real page. This will totally fool a normal user. So we entered Sue's username and password. It felt so dirty entering her real Office 365 password, but it was also really fun. And I just wanted to point out again, here's that link enlarged. It also says not secure. It doesn't always do that, but many times attackers don't take the time to have anything resembling a proper SSL TLS certificate. And when you enter your password, it goes, boop, DocuSign, wrong password, try again. So when that happened, I was like, oh crap, we mistyped our password. They totally got me. I was like, guys, type it again. I can't believe you fat-fingered it. But what's really going on here? Yeah, they might get your alternatives. They might get a few different passwords from you, which is pretty cool. And also, I mean, they totally could link it to your real Office 365 account and make it a totally seamless experience, right? Get your password and then log you in. But that's a lot of work, and I'm not sure most attackers care that much. By the way, that was a really good point about getting alternate passwords. What's your name? Torn. Okay. I'm going to pick on you. You're in the front row. So that happened on Friday. On Friday, we got phished, because Friday's kind of the quietest day of the week at our office. Saturday, nothing happened. Sunday, nothing happened. Monday was Martin Luther King Day, and Monday, nothing happened either. These guys are aware of normal business hours. First thing Tuesday morning, we got an email from the hackers, and I don't think they were based in the United States, and I don't think they were celebrating Martin Luther King Day. We were so excited. We got hacked. I was like, oh my God, Allie, I can't believe it. We're thrilled. Yes. How do we know we got hacked? Well, we got an email from the hacker. Well, I'll show you. I'll show you how we knew. There's a few different ways. First of all, we had the logging turned up. Second, the attackers had logged into our account. They grabbed our stolen password, they logged in, and they had done some searches. They searched for things like invoices, and they found our invoice from trustedofficesolutions.com, where Nora from Trusted Office Solutions said, hey, please pay us, and here's our wire transfer information. So they searched, and they found that. And they made a fake invoice that looked just like it, and they sent us a fake email. I'm going to see if I can use the laser pointer. How do I use it? This is a new thing. There we go. Okay, so it was from Nora Chen. Looked like it came from trustedofficesolutions.com, and it said, hi, Sue. Just a quick notification to let you know our bank account is currently under review and can't be used to receive funds, because that's normal. I've attached the final invoice. Please, you can transfer the funds into our subsidiary bank details. Timothy, somebody. I looked that guy up. He does security at a credit union in the Midwest, not too far from here. Poor guy probably had his bank account hacked. Kindly let me know if the payment will be made today. Your urgent response would be highly appreciated. Can we just get spam filters to flag anything that has the word urgent in it, right? Your timely response. Okay, so our new billing clerk gets this, and so in real life, what might a new billing clerk do? Oh, hey, CFO, can I pay Trusted Office Solutions? Is that cool? Yeah, go ahead, of course. Okay, so we look at this new invoice. This is the final invoice because their bank account was under review. So here's the legit one, and we didn't actually use a real bank's information because we didn't actually want to get real money stolen. But they replaced it with this stolen bank account information there and basically made a new version of that invoice. So that was exciting. One thing we're seeing, we didn't see it in this case, but I just wanted to bring to your attention, often we see attackers go in and click forward on all of your messages. So you can go into Office 365 and it says, start forwarding my email to whatever badguyemail@gmail.com. So that's something we're seeing a lot in cases. But what we did see in this case and many others are mailbox rules that were set up. So here's one of them. It's the hackers put in a rule that said any messages that had the following words in the subject, office furniture invoice payment update, would get moved into the archive. And any messages that were from Trusted Office Solutions would get moved to archive. Why is that important for the attackers? Yeah, so you don't know you got hacked. And if the real vendor says, hey, I haven't received that invoice, you're not going to see that message. All those emails get stuck. They got stuck in the archive, and unless susceptible were to know to look in the archive, there's no reason. But the attacker knows to look in there. So Tuesday, we had an email from the hackers. Wednesday, we had a follow-up email from the hackers. And we also, by the way, had a follow-up email. We created a follow-up email from the original vendor, and so then the hackers sent us a follow-up email as well. They were totally checking our mail and following what was going on. I'm pretty sure they get paid on commission, so yeah, we were excited. Here's my hamster. Okay, so the legit message from our vendor, Nora, says, hi, Sue, just following up on the invoice I sent Friday. Could you please confirm receipt? And that gets sent to the archive. And then the attackers say, hi, Sue, just following up on the invoice I sent yesterday. Could you please confirm receipt? Thank you for your business, et cetera. Because, you know, we didn't actually transfer the money. So drilling down into our invoice a little more, it was created by Microsoft Word 2016. It looked, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of metadata in it. They were pretty smart. It wasn't like licensed to anybody. We also dug down into the emails themselves. We found that it had an originating IP address of 41.58.95.37. Trivia for Tom Pohl, what country is that? Africa. Hey, that's really good. Oh, man. Okay, whoever said that first, did you say that first? You get a t-shirt. You got beat. Yeah, Afrinic. Nice work. And it turned out it was actually based out of Nigeria. So not from Trusted Office Solutions. So to recap, our number one threat Criminals are using stolen passwords to access email. It sounds really boring. They break into your email. Then they start doing interesting things like adding mail forwarding rules. They're searching email for invoices, and they're taking over those conversations. And I think that's a thing that many normal people who don't see this don't realize is happening. They're like, how would anybody know? Really, they're going to that level that they're actually reading the messages and crafting these invoices. And yes, that is exactly what they're doing. They're sophisticated attackers. I like that word. I think that got popularized, like 2010, 2011 during the Aurora and RSA attacks. It's a sophisticated cyber attack. It's not our fault. Okay, so the damage is, number one, you can lose a lot of money. And number two, you may well have a data breach on your hands. One of the biggest problems we see today is that most folks are not logging, or they don't have very granular logging turned on your email. So if somebody breaks in, we don't know what they downloaded. Maybe they were just after money, but if you happen to have a spreadsheet of social security numbers or some patient health information and you can't rule it out, in a lot of states at that point, you have to notify. So we're probably over-notifying, and logging helps. Do any of you know, do you have granular logging turned on your Office 365 email? Awesome. Awesome. That's two more people than usually raise their hands. Okay, our data breach trivia of the night, because I have a book on data breaches coming out. For a book, when did the term data breach first come into popular use? It wasn't around when we were kids. Well, there might be a few of you guys that were kids. When did data breaches first, emerge as a thing?
Are we allowed to use Google for this?
You cannot use Google for this.
2007.
Who said that? You're wrong. But you're pretty close. You're pretty close.
2003.
Who said that? You were close, but also wrong. Oh, who said that? You won that. You can't win two things. Here. Did anybody else hear him? All right, here you go. Yeah, 2005 was when the term data breaches first came into popular use. So does anyone remember Choice Point? Come on. Anybody? Tom Pohl? Yeah. Choice Point was a big, can I curse in here? One night. Choice Point was a big fucking deal, people. It was the data breach of the time. It was the first poster child. That was when they said, Choice Point is the data breach poster child. Choice Point led to data breach notification laws in at least 22 states by the end of that year. Choice Point is the reason that you guys have a notification law in your state, unless you're California. So what happened was Choice Point was a background checking company. And they didn't even get hacked. It's kind of like the Cambridge Analytica case that's going on right now. They didn't do a good job vetting partners, they didn't do a good job vetting customers, and they actually sold access to their background checking database to criminals from Nigeria. And then when they realized it had happened, because the criminal was located in LA, they notified California residents only. And after they sent out notification letters to California residents, attorney generals of other states were like, wait a second, does this affect our residents? And then, of course, they had to notify other people. So anyway, there were a couple isolated cases where data breaches was used in the previous year as a shortening of cardholder data breaches. But Choice Point was this first really big case where it wasn't a cardholder data breach. It was social security numbers. It was your background check information. So here's an article from February 17th of 2005 where it says, data breaches are becoming all too common and current federal law does not require notification to consumers. Senator Dianne Feinstein. Also, do any of you guys use, there's a website where you can look up all the data breaches. I'm trying to remember. It's the, what was that? It's not Have I Been Pwned. It's the, no, although that's a really good one too. It's the privacy rights, gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Anyway, it's a database of all the data breaches since 2005. It's my canonical source for looking at public data breaches. And it was originally named All the Data Breaches Since, what was that? Thank you so much. The Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, that's right. It was originally named All the Data Breaches Since Choice Point. So I think Choice Point is the birth of data breaches. All right, I'm more interested in this than you guys are. I understand. So what do you do if you suspect an email breach? Don't look at my slide. What's that? Enter in your password. No. What do you do if you suspect a data breach? No, I mean, seriously, a lot of you guys, how many of you are in incident response? Maybe I have to turn it on.
So if you found that someone was breached, typically you want to quarantine and contain, so change the password, kill the tokens. And then once you've made sure that it's all contained and everything's remediated, then you'd want to consult management, and maybe a data breach coach would be the next step or something like that, depending.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So, of course, change the password, of course. You might also have an infected computer, so you might want to investigate that piece. A couple things that people often forget to do. Number one, place a litigation hold on the affected accounts. Sometimes the attackers will have emails that are accumulating in archives or places like that, and they may go and delete it regularly. So if you can quickly place a litigation hold, like you see in this screenshot here, that's a really good thing for your investigation. Also, preserving logs immediately. We see a lot of cases where maybe they've waited weeks or even months in order to actually respond to the incident or call in a forensics team like ours. And by the time we get called in, those logs have rolled over, and that means that we can't scope it down. And in some states, you have to assume that everything might have been accessed. So again, I think we're dealing with a lot of over-notification because we're not preserving our logs. By the way, how am I doing for time? My time zones are a little mixed up. I have 8:40, is that right? 7:40. Oh, I have so much time. That's great. I won't go till 9, don't worry.
Run the scripts to make sure they're not forwarding like you presented earlier and stuff like that.
Yeah, make sure they're not forwarding, check for the mail filtering rules, stuff like that. I do want to mention, by the way, for those of you that are involved in breach response or want to know more, we are running a class on May 15th. We didn't do it on purpose, but it's 5:15, whoa, like 515. And that's here. We do an annual class on digital first response here in Des Moines. So we start with a tabletop exercise in the morning. We do 3 hands-on evidence preservation exercises. So we'll do volatile memory collection, hard drive evidence collection, and then network forensics evidence collection. It's like a boot camp. So for those of you that are interested, it would be really good to see people. Okay, so a couple other things to note that can help you detect and prevent an incident of this type. Turn on your notifications. You can get a notification if someone is redirecting your mail. It's definitely worth doing. And also authentication. It sounds like you guys are pretty up to speed on strong authentication. When I talk to bankers or lawyers, they're like, oh, yeah, this might be a good idea. But just to recap, what are the 3 different ways that we can authenticate people? Something you know, something you have, something you are. Yeah, that's right. And I think like using your debit card in an ATM is one of the best examples of using 2-factor authentication on a day-to-day basis. Because they didn't used to do that. I mean, some of the early ATMs did not have a PIN. You were just like, I'm going to put my punch card in that ATM and get my 50 quid out on the weekend. And then they had problems. And it's cool to see, I mean, again, those of you that have been in security for a while, it's cool to see that now we have authenticator apps. You don't have to have those tokens for everybody. I know some companies where they literally have drawers of tokens. So the fact that we're able to issue these cheaply and it's convenient for people is a real step forward. If you want, you can go to lmgsecurity.com/passwords and see videos on how to set up 2-factor authentication for Office 365 and also for Google. So again, if you have any questions on how to set it up for your personal accounts or for your work accounts, that's a good resource. Also, I really like this cartoon. Starting today, all passwords have to contain numbers, letters, doodles, and sign language, and squirrel noises. Of course, that is not our industry standard anymore. NIST came out, 2016 at this point, summer of 2016, and they said, don't worry so much about complex passwords because that makes it harder to remember, which makes the security go down. Instead, just think about using long passwords for people. So officially, our federal government is no longer recommending complexity. Instead, we're recommending length. And there's no jokes there. Okay. Things are moving forward. There we go. Threat number 2. That was our longest threat. The rest of them will go a little quicker. Threat number 2, cryptojacking. Have you guys seen cryptojacking on your computers yet? How long has cryptojacking been a word, by the way? Like 4 months? Something like that? I first heard it and I was like, that's cool. we saw a trickle of cryptocurrency miners being installed all last year. It really started to ramp up in the fall. And finally, in January and February, there was an epidemic of cryptojacking, where attackers break into your servers and install cryptocurrency miners. In fact, whenever we see attackers breaking into computers these days, they seem to just be throwing on a cryptocurrency miner while they're at it, just to see if they can make some recurring revenue. So back in February, there were some articles about 500,000 PCs that were infected because of Eternal Blue. So, some organizations still had not patched that vulnerability, which makes sense. And it's worth mentioning, I threw in this devil robber graphic because attackers are not just installing cryptocurrency miners. We see cases where they say, oh, it was just a cryptocurrency miner, we're going to go back to our normal business. But a lot of times there's a cryptocurrency miner and there's a data stealing Trojan and there's pirated software being hosted and all kinds of other stuff. So there's multi-component incidents. Oops. I think cryptocurrency miner more and more may become a replacement for ransomware. Any theories on this? I think it makes sense. It's the new ransomware. Yeah, cryptocurrency is the new ransomware, just like DEF CON is the new Black Hat, and B-Sides is the new DEF CON, and yeah, cryptocurrency is the new ransomware. Because it takes a lot of work to hold somebody for ransom, and it's pretty risky. And instead, instead, if you do the math, this is a nice article that talks about the fact that if an attacker can generate 25 cents per day from a hacked computer and they get 2,000 victims, that's $500 a day. And if you do the math over the course of a year, that's $182,000 a year. And how hard is it to take over 2,000 systems in the world? Not very hard, especially when you have IoT botnets, which we're going to get to in a little while. So it's a way to make a living. It's a way to make recurring revenue. So I want to take you into one of the that we handled in the fall. This was about October. So the first thing that we found was a cryptocurrency miner that was mining Monero. So it was just a normal server, CPU mining. And at the time, everybody was really focused on the rise of cryptocurrency and the rise in value, so it seems like a good investment for our attackers. This was interesting because our attacker was not too tech savvy. And they actually fired up Firefox, a web browser, on the server that they had hacked. And the first thing they did was they checked their IP address, pretty common. And then they said they went to getting started with Bitcoin. And after they had read that page, they went to USAA, and it looked like they logged into a bank account from USAA, which we'll drill into in a minute. They also did a Google search for SPR. Tom Pohl, what is SPR? I dug into it, and there's actually a cryptocurrency with those that's called SPR. So I think that may be what they were looking at. I was really curious because we've seen USAA accounts involved in a number of cases, and I think there's a few reasons for that. One, of course, our veterans, for one, have had their information stolen a number of times, and that's unfortunate. But also, one of my friends who's a vet showed me a screenshot of their app, and they actually have cryptocurrency accounts built in automatically. So here's the address of your Bitcoin wallet, Ethereum, Litecoin, whatever, or US dollars, and you can change very easily between them. So it makes sense that criminals might be going after those accounts. So the next thing they did was they downloaded 2 WhatsApp images. Again, onto the server, onto your hacked server. Like, these people just don't care about being caught, do they? No. These are the images. Tom Pohl, you're missing all the fun. You can see a driver's license and a person holding a credit card. So this driver's license was made with stolen information. This was a hacked financial institution, and the attackers grabbed stolen financial information from the server and used it to create a fake driver's license from Oklahoma, and also created a picture of themselves holding the credit card. I'm pretty sure this is a picture of our hacker. So this case was more complex, by the way, than I first thought it was. It took me a little while to sort of figure out what was going on. Any theories as to what's going on? Tom Pohl, I'm feeling lonely. Yeah, any theories as to what might be going on here for those of you that are cryptocurrency mining geeks? I hear some stuff about registration, blah, blah, blah. cryptocurrency exchange. That was my first guess. You totally get a duck for that. Oh, sorry. Here, you get a t-shirt. I have an extra one. Watch out. That's yours. Just take it. That was my first thought, that somebody was registering on a cryptocurrency exchange, because you have to verify your identity, at least to the best extent that they can try to verify people over the web. And then I started digging into it more. The next thing that these people did was they went to Simplex. Does anybody know what Simplex is? I assumed it was a cryptocurrency exchange. The opposite of duplex. Okay, I'll give you that. Here, you can have a fucking slap bracelet. I went over my limit. Shit. So from what I can tell, Simplex is a site where you can use your credit card to buy cryptocurrency. And of course, there's some liability in that, right? Because credit card payments can be reversed, but cryptocurrency transfers are non-reversible. So there's a reason why it takes a whole company to be engaged in this. And it's interesting, they have a lot of partners. These are just a few. Bitcoin.com, Genesis Mining, all that stuff. So the hacker uses this stuff and then goes to a site for taking credit cards and converting them to cryptocurrency. Aha, so why is that? My guess is that, I think we have a multi-component incident going on here. And I used to think that they were just creating a wallet and transferring money, but I think they're doing two things. First of all, they installed a cryptocurrency on the miner, or miner on the server, because why not, right? You can make some money, great. And they already have a wallet set up for that, and that's getting transferred out. And then they stole PII, they surfed to some cryptocurrency info sites, they went to a likely stolen bank account, they doctored the driver's license, and then I think what they're trying to do is transfer money from this bank account that they've taken over to cryptocurrency in order to launder it and steal it. So they're using the debit card number that they've stolen, they're converting it to cryptocurrency, and at the same time, they're also mining Bitcoin, or mining Monero, excuse me, on that server. Make sense? That is my current working hypothesis of this case. So why do we care about crypto miners? If somebody installs just a crypto miner on your server, do you really care? They're just using an itty-bitty bit of power. Does it matter? Why does it matter? You're compromised already. Could be a data breach. Also, we had a case. I'm not making this up. We had a case where there was an IT person who went to a company and said, hey, I really need a big, beefy computer. And sorry, it wasn't an IT company, it was the IT guy at a company. The company said, okay, we approve your request for a big, beefy computer. And the guy sets up the computer and uses it. And a few weeks later, the IT guy reports that the computer caught on fire and melted, and he needs a new computer. So the company said, oh, okay, well, that's weird. Sure, you can buy a new computer. And he did. They let him buy another computer. And then a few weeks after that, they figured out that he was mining cryptocurrency with this big, beefy computer, and they fired him. And he sued them for a wrongful termination that is going on right now. But he's claiming that they had no policy that said he couldn't mine cryptocurrency, and they approved the purchase. Yeah. So anyway, it's important to have a good policy. The other piece of this is that we're starting to see people hacking into web servers in order to install cryptocurrency, in order to install software like CoinHive. Anybody know what CoinHive is? Yes, yes. What's CoinHive? That's right, it's a JavaScript crypto miner. So you're leveraging visitors. Oh God, my aim is just so off tonight. I'm gonna try again. Hey! You're awesome. That was great. Yes. So CoinHive, it's a legitimate tool. It's for administrators. So instead of having to show everybody ads, which is annoying, you can just slow down their computers a teeny tiny little bit. So you can use the web browsers of visitors to mine cryptocurrency for you. It's a brilliant idea, and I think it'll probably reduce the number of ads that we see. The problem is that this gives attackers even more incentive to hijack your website. So they're trying to hijack as many websites as they can. The LA Times had one of their subsidiary websites hacked for weeks before anybody realized what was going on, because they weren't using a very high percentage of each individual user's CPU. So it took a while to figure it out. There were also about 4,000 US and UK government sites that were infected with cryptocurrency miners. It was because of a third-party plugin, Browse Aloud, an accessibility plugin that had cryptocurrency mining software installed, and then that trickled down to all of these websites that used the plugin, and so all the visitors to those websites had their computers or had their browsers slowed down just a little bit. So we're going to start to see this more and more. And it's interesting, the article says US and UK government sites were effective, could have been a catastrophe, and it could have when you think about it if they were doing something other, something more destructive like ransomware. I thought this was really interesting. In February, we saw a rash of cryptojacking cases where websites, what was that? We get a text message sent to your computer. What's that? Oh, you would get a text message, sent to your phone, and people would click on, or an email, and people would click on that link, and they didn't know it, but a pop-under would show up on their phone. So your phone's web browser would open up a web page. It wasn't a pop-up, like it wouldn't be the top page. It would pop under some of your other pages. And it would spike your CPU because it's using your phone to mine cryptocurrency. And in this case, it was pretty darn obvious because as you can see from the graph on the right, it's using up almost 100% of the CPU. So the average time that it was on people's phones was about 4 minutes. But if that were only using 25% of the CPU, I could imagine a lot of people walking around having that page up for hours, if not days. And in the meantime, your phone is just mining cryptocurrency for somebody else. So this is the beginning of an epidemic. It's kind of like the early days of ransomware. It's not going away. And at least it's a less destructive, I guess you might say, phase that we're going into. I don't know if you remember Blaster and Slammer and Nimda from the early 2000s. Those are really destructive. Those took down networks. And then attackers realized, hey, if we kill our host, we're not going to make as much money off of it. Why don't we just stealthily lurk and get data? And so we went into this long, quiet period of relative peace where they were just quietly stealing our data and selling it on the black market. And then we went into this nasty period of ransomware, right, where they would hold people hostage and, again, kind of destroy that network. And now we're going back to a more subtle threat. So it's interesting to see that pendulum swing. Okay, I'll stop geeking out at you. How are you guys doing? This good? Want to see the last couple? Okay. So we'll wrap it up by just talking quickly about cyber extortion and also IoT botnets, which kind of build on the material we've done to date. If any of you need a little stretch break or a glass of wine, feel free to just get on up and wander. Third threat that I wanted to talk about is cyber extortion. So I like to think of there being two types of cyber extortion. Type A is pay or you'll never see your data again. So the screenshot you see here is from a transportation company that we had helped. They were totally taken down. Even their backups were encrypted. And the criminal said, pay us or you're not going to see that data again, just like what happened with Atlanta recently. The second type, type B, cyber extortion, pay us or everyone will see your data. That has been gaining steam. So let's dig into that a little bit. Anybody follow the exploits of the dark overlord? It's interesting how Twitter has made cyber extortion possible to a certain extent. If you Google for the dark overlord, you'll see that this is a hacking group. It's not really an individual. And they've hacked many organizations. There was, in 2016, a rash of attacks against healthcare organizations. We believe that probably originated from a hack of a third-party vendor that had leaked a password list, and so then all of their clients then got hacked. But so you saw dentistry or dental companies getting hacked, hospitals getting hacked, and the dark overlord would require them to pay often huge sums of money, $50,000, $100,000, or they threatened to release all that patient data to the world. This is also the same group that hacked Netflix. So you can see April 28th of 2016, he says very dramatically, and so let it be read that the loathsome giants do fall. Hello, Netflix, we've arrived. And then there's a link to some movies and some other Netflix data. And then a few days later it says, don't mind us as we dust off 3,500 dentistry patient records, a dental company that didn't pay. And then let's add a 0 to the last figure, another clinic who has also mistreated us and their patients, and then a link to all of that patient data. So that is obviously putting those healthcare organizations in a very tough position. These guys also use really nasty tactics that often have similarities in physical kidnapping. So for example, this is one healthcare clinic that they held for ransom, and they posted 500 patients' information as on pastebin.com because it's kind of like cutting off a finger of a kidnapping victim. They were like, pay up or we're going to release more. Literally, that's what they said. I don't know if I zoomed in. They said, leaked patient PHI records, pay up. And then they have the name of the CEO. And then there's all the patient records that have been leaked. So that is super embarrassing and damaging for the patients, of course. What we're seeing today more and more is that hackers aren't just looking for this regulated, structured data. They're also looking for embarrassing information. And a lot of these cases you never see hit the news. It's handled very privately. So they're saying, hey, CEO, you're having an affair with the secretary, and we know that from your emails, pay us $50,000. That's an example. Here's a nice article about why hackers are targeting your office gossip, because it's embarrassing for people and they can squeeze them for money. I think Sony is one of the early cases that helped executives to realize that your email is valuable. Again, it used to be the case where I'd say, hey, you really need to pick a strong email password. And when I talk to executives, they'd say, no, who cares if somebody breaks into my email? Have any of you ever had that conversation with somebody? I don't have anything important in my email, right? But your correspondence itself can be important. So this is the extortion email that was sent to Sony executives, Amy Pascal, Michael Linton. It says, pay the damage or Sony Pictures will be bombarded as a whole, monetary compensation we want. You know us very well, we never wait long. So that's an extortion email that we know Sony received 3 days before their very publicized breach, and we know they received it because their email was dumped to the world. And you saw emails like this, or you saw news articles like this. I mean, this was a disaster for Sony's reputation and for them as a company. There were articles that say everybody went through their email and said, wow, there's all these nasty racist comments. They offended a lot of the movie stars that worked for them. It showed salary discrepancies between some of the top executives, or between male and female executives, things like that. It has shown an unflattering light on the world of Hollywood executives. And in this world, reputation, of course, is everything. And then, to top it off, WikiLeaks published the dumped data. And this is one of the biggest dangers of all, especially for those of you that are in mid-sized to large firms. Organizations like WikiLeaks have figured out how to, it's not just about dumping the information out to the world, it's dumping it in a way that's useful for people, and that's good and bad. I mean, I'm pro-transparency, but at the same time, this can be very damaging in the event of a data breach. For example, and I go through this in my upcoming book, Data Breaches, but you can see in the DNC hack, the reason that was so damaging was because not just because it was out there, but because there was a searchable database and because WikiLeaks is very effective at using Twitter to get the word out about new breaches and new leaks. So the latest big development in cyber extortion is that communities are being threatened. Have any of you been following the education extortion cases from the past 6 months or so?
That actually happened locally here.
That's right, it did happen here in Iowa, didn't it? Yeah, this might actually be an Iowa case. So yeah, in several states, what was that?
My kid's data was in that.
Your kids' data was in that. Was that their high school or their elementary school?
Yeah, I figured out exactly when they got it.
I'm so glad you came back, Tom. Yeah, so the creepy thing about these cases is they're hacking into schools, and as we know, schools are fortresses of cybersecurity, right? They're so well protected. No, they don't have the resources to protect themselves very well. Their DVR systems can get hacked, their camera systems, and the criminals have access to not just all the data about mental health problems and disciplinary records and grades. They also have cell phone numbers. They have addresses. We've seen cases where they're texting parents and threatening their children's lives unless the school district pays. So they've learned to attack our community members and threaten our communities in order to get school districts to pay up. And when they're trying to get our school districts to pay up, they're not just saying pay us $51,000 like Atlanta. They're offering payment plans, pay us $100,000 monthly over a year, or $150,000 if you want your payment plan to be 2 years, or if you're going to give us a lump sum up front, $75. These are sophisticated organizations. But in my opinion, you should never pay the ransom in Type B ransomware. Because let's say the dark overlord tells you, pay us for a year, every single month, we're going to get on a payment plan, and at the end of the year, we'll delete your data. What guarantee do you have, of course, that in 6 months, they're not going to come back and demand more money, right? And so this is what happened with Uber. Uber in particular, there were a lot of gray areas. It's really important to report these cases immediately. There are organizations that pay the ransom, and then for the rest of time, they have to worry about not just being held for ransom again, but now they've done something wrong and potentially covered up a data breach, and that may be an even bigger liability. Then they're not an innocent victim. So you could see why Uber hit the news. It wasn't just that they had a breach, it was that they hid that breach and they paid it as though it was a bug bounty, even though someone had stolen the data. So that's it. Any comments on cyber extortion before we move into our last one and wrap up? Okay, I have one more t-shirt that I'm not going back to Montana with. So. Our fourth threat is IoT botnets. By 2020, we're projected to have up to 30 billion devices on the internet. That's amazing. That's way more than there are the number of people. And of course, the Internet of Things has infiltrated our lives, everything from cars to washing machines. In your office, somebody has probably plugged your coffee pot into the network, and that coffee pot's probably infected and making your delicious coffee. We also have our smartwatches. Mine's a dumb watch. But we also have smartwatches, Fitbits, smartphones, things that, have you ever seen somebody plug their iPod into your corporate computer in order to charge it? Oh, so dirty. They're everywhere. This is one, how many of you were at DEF CON and saw this table of medical equipment that had been hacked? My colleague Bo Woods took this picture. There was one in particular that showed you could easily hack a device that monitors vital signs as people undergo surgery, and you could change it to look like they're doing just fine, even though they're bleeding out and they have no pulse and they're ready to die. That's a side note, though. We won't go there. Also, I thought it was interesting that printers were such a big deal at Black Hat this past year. They are still being overlooked. They're still not being maintained, and they are, in fact, part of our Internet of Things. So a couple years ago, we started to see these massive, widespread botnets consisting of IoT devices. This is one case involving the Mirai botnet, where DVR systems and cameras took down a large portion of the internet, shut down a major ISP. And it was powered by bots that were located all over the world, everywhere from South America to Europe to the United States. These were camera systems, that DVRs that had been hacked and were being used to power this. It was this little army of botnets. And it was working because so many devices out there are plugged in and their passwords are never changed. This is like cybersecurity 101, right? We still haven't learned these basic lessons. So there's a list out there of the 60 passwords that were used to power the Mirai botnet, default passwords that you can totally change, but you have to be organized and audit your network and actually look for them. And then we started to see an evolution within the past year. Reaper and also Satori, and they're actually exploiting vulnerabilities. They're not just looking for default passwords. The Mirai code, by the way, is out there. It's open source. You can play with it yourself and make variations or try. In fact, that might be a fun thing to do for some future SecDSM event. But because it's out there, that means that we're going to see more and more variations of it. Just this month, I pulled a new article. There's a new IT botnet, Echoes of Mirai, and it's targeting financial institution websites specifically. So again, it's not going away. We're going to start to see more and more variations of it, probably combined with some other attacks. So your water systems, your camera systems, your HVAC systems, all of these things are potential targets. And if you remember from our cryptojacking discussion a little while ago, these things can be taken down by the code that's installed on them. They can catch on fire. They can melt down. Attackers don't care if your HVAC system goes down, right? They don't care if your access control systems stop working. They're just trying to make a buck, and if they happen to crash your systems, it doesn't matter. Or maybe they'll just use that to try to hold you for ransom. So to conclude, this is a screenshot of the DLA Piper ransomware attack. I don't know if you guys remember this from I think it was the summer, last summer? Yeah, the summer of 2017. This is a law firm that got held for ransom, and all their computers were down, their email systems were down, their phones were down. They couldn't do anything. This sign says, "Attention DLA employees, all network services are down. Do not turn on your computers." And these are high-powered attorneys that have active cases and deadlines going on. But at least they could walk into the lobby, right? At least they could swipe their badges, and the HVAC systems were working, and the lights were going. And in the future, we're going to see threats to that fundamental infrastructure. So to recap, use two-factor authentication. Make sure you're training people on phishing so that they don't lose their passwords or get infected. Use strong passwords. Activate your cloud security features. Take advantage of those features in Office 365 and other webmail. Use password management tools, and then manage patches on all your devices, not just your mainstream computers, but also all your little IoT devices. Again, just a reminder, I hope we see some of you guys at the DFR class here on 5/15, May 15th. We're going to do 3 hands-on technical labs and also a tabletop exercise. The early bird deadline is next Wednesday, so if you sign up by next Wednesday, you get a $50 discount for anybody who signs up. So hopefully we'll see some of you guys there. And then, again, I have feedback forms at the last page of your packet, so grab a pen, take some time, give me a little feedback. And with that, I'll take questions, and whoever asks a question first gets a t-shirt. How much is the training? Early bird registration is I think it's either $445 or $450. And then after early bird, it's $495. Great question. And it's a single day, so we cram a lot into one day. Yes?
Also, are you seeing that leading into romance scams as well when you take the fished financial information and then it's then through a romance scam to someone to open up a bank account and then that bank account's used? Are you seeing that angle?
So the question is, are you seeing, say again, somebody, yeah.
So as you...
Oops, sorry. Try again.
Hello. All right. So are you seeing anything with romance scams? So say the attack patterns from Africa like you saw earlier, the whole slew happens. They end up taking all the sensitive nuggets for financial data. Now there's a romance scam of someone in some United States state. They get someone, they pull on their heartstrings, they open up a bank account, and then they get them to shuffle around the money.
Gotcha. We are seeing, I have not seen that specifically, although I'm not sure it would come to our attention as a forensics firm. What we are definitely seeing is follow-on phishing scams and additional money transfer scams for anybody who's corresponded with the initial victim. So that's what we tend to see as a forensics firm. Probably the FBI or the Secret Service would have more information about romance scams and things like that, because we don't tend to trace cases that far, but they will, if they hack an account, they will definitely try to phish and follow up with people that you've corresponded with. So great question. Any other questions? Okay, well, grab some cyber slap bracelets, and thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for talking. We have the space till 9 o'clock, so hang out. And then I think there's something down the street. Is that what you were talking about earlier? Maybe. Drink somewhere.
So no one's solved the CTF yet. I think there might be people that are getting there, and someone might be so close. So hopefully, if you guys are still working on it, maybe you guys can get it solved by the end of the night. We got, 45 more minutes? So the clock's running.
Yep, so if somebody solves it, they can come up and present on the solution. Thanks.